Welcome to this segment I call the Society of Ungentlemanly Warfare. This is going to be a pretty funny discussion amongst professionals who have worked in what I would call unconventional warfare, whether that be direct action, psychological warfare, many other types of activities that take place in the intelligence community or the armed forces, which directly affect our enemies, but in an unconventional sense. So, Winston Churchill was the one who appointed a minister of ungentlemanly warfare during World War II, and they created the Special Operations Executive. I am a student of the history of Special Operations Executive and the OSS, the Office of Strategic Services, also a member of the OSS Society. So I'll be introducing you to some of the more interesting and unconventional aspects of things that we do. In this episode, what I want to talk about is psychological warfare or influence operations and memes in the cyberspace. And when I say meme, I don't mean, the guy with the, who doesn't speak and makes a fake wall. I'm talking about MEMES, memes, which are little cartoons or photograph vignettes designed to troll or discredit or just irritate your opponents. And there's nothing that's happening more interesting or exciting with as much reach right now in the unconventional warfare world than a group that calls themselves the North American Fellas Organization, or NAFO. And why this is interesting is because not only am I a member of NAFO, I am actually one of the first memes that they did, creating little Inu Shibu dogs, these little Japanese, as they called them, brain damaged Japanese cartoon dogs, dressed up like each individual character. And I'm famous for the one that has the quote that I said during the Kharkiv offensive, "What now, bitches?" So with that, I'm bringing another object that was sent to me just recently. NAFO has created the Central Intelligence Agency, or I guess that's still CFA, all right, the Intelligence Agency. And for this discussion, we're going to meet our guest on this segment, who is a U.S. Army veteran of psychological operations. He has worked in influence operations for years. He is still a reservist, and that's John Kirbo. John, welcome to Black Man Spy.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, John, you've seen the NAFO meme war that's been going on with the Russians. What's your impression of just how effective these applications of slightly brain damaged Japanese cartoon dogs has been in the war against war against Russia?
Right. Well, in a general sense, it's hard to get measures of effectiveness in a pinpoint sense, but generally speaking, it's surprisingly effective. Meme warfare has been studied, especially with ISIS, both the way they use it, the way we use it. And as a wider campaign, when it really echoes themes and messages consistently and knows its audience and uses satire to debunk really terrible propaganda like whataboutism, especially this used by Russia, I think it's surprisingly effective, and it can complement other operations too. So it's sort of a multiplier in some sense, at least hopefully.
Yeah. Well, I remember the first time that I heard this because a mutual friend of ours, a former Marine tanker, was putting these little memes up of these cartoon dogs, or as he insists they be called, slightly brain damaged Japanese cartoon dogs. And it started out as a support operation to raise money for the Georgian Legion. And, the motto of the Georgian Legion is, wolves hunting in the night or something along that line. And the theme for NAFO, as they called it later, was Feed the Wolves. And they were raising money for the Georgian Legion. And to do that, what they did was they would make a version of you as a slightly brain damaged Japanese cartoon dog, dressed up in a tracksuit. The original one was a guy in a blue and yellow tracksuit, Adidas tracksuit.
Oh, the Adidas, duh.
Yeah, and they would make up a character for you for a donation to the Georgian Legion. Someone made one up for me. In fact, they made two up for me. and they had one with my yellow shooting glasses and my white beard and my International Legion logo on my helmet that you see if you see on the meme that we had on screen of my on the what now, the famous "What Now Bitches" quote. But all of them are nearly identical, right? The character on the front, the slightly brain damaged Japanese cartoon dog, as you see here wearing sunglasses, is the constant on all of these memes. And I know for a fact, the purpose of this was to raise money for the Georgian Legion. And then they started getting into essentially memetic warfare. And that is exchanging hostile memes towards people who were supporters of Russia and essentially trying to make fun of them or shame them. And it turns out that these guys went on the attack against a Russian diplomat, and that diplomat ridiculously answered them. And suddenly a pile of thousands and thousands of people were buying these little slightly brain damaged Japanese cartoon dogs and going online and piling onto any thread that a Russian would dare show up on, or a Russian supporter, and make fun of them. And I, of course, found this hilarious, right? Just absolutely amazing. But it turns out they were so effective. News articles have been written about them. They got recognition from the Minister of Defense of Ukraine himself, who had his own slightly brain damaged Japanese cartoon dog made for him. And he actually gave a big Slava Ukraini out to what they now were calling NAFO, because Russia's accusations that NATO was actually at war with Russia. And the fellas, as they call themselves, took that and decided to declare Article 5 for NAFO, the North America Fellas Organization, and say, Russia's not at war with NATO, you're at war with NAFO in memetic warfare.
That's freaking awesome.
Okay, well, what do you think about it? You're a psychological operations guy.
Well, so this is interesting. Memetics, the term meme was coined by Richard Dawkins in The Selfish Gene. I think it was 1976. The idea is that it's the lowest level of transmitting a belief or piece of information that can then spread among people by the millions, at least in a general sense. So meme warfare it can be effective, especially when it comes to exposing the absurdity of an argument. But human beings, it seems like we're hardwired by evolutionary psychology, by our just evolutionary history, to think in terms of light and dark. That's why Star Wars is so popular, because it has a light and a dark, a kind of binary good versus evil story. So that story structure is somewhat seen across all cultures. And memes tend to exploit this by appealing to our brain's propensity for stories explained in simple graphic terms. One thing that with that Russian diplomat, he was making the absurd argument that Ukraine was shelling Donbass or something in 2014, so therefore that's why we're at war. And they just turned that around on its head by saying, oh yeah, so because something bad in 2014, therefore we're going to shell all the Ukrainian civilians, and just completely expose the whataboutism. And I see these arguments all the time. But I think when it's a wider campaign that has a domino effect across cyber, and cyber is a good form of dissemination because almost everybody has phones. Even people on the battlefield might cheat and pull their phone out so they can get on, Tinder or talk to their wives or whatever. So I think it's pretty effective as a part of a wider campaign. It's not just the memes, it's the unpopularity of the war, the diplomatic and public affairs, cyber operations, all that together, I think in a complementary sense, has a demoralizing effect on the Russians, but also has a galvanizing effect on NATO countries. So I think it's actually awesome. It's also a lot of fun.
Okay. Emphasis on fun. All right.
Yeah.
So, if you're really looking to see what NAFO is, there are several news articles about them in really credible papers. Certainly throughout Europe, Europe has taken NAFO by storm. Right. It got so bad that an Estonian NGO started donating trucks with NAFO stickers on the side.
Right.
And the camouflage on it, if you look at it, instead of it being, little brown and yellow and tan squiggles, were actually shaped, the outline shape of these little brain damaged Japanese cartoon dogs.
Right.
The Shibu Inu dog, I guess. And we're actually patterning them like camouflage. It's so awesome.
That's awesome.
I want them. And they've managed to actually donate 96 cars in the NAFO camouflage. So it's moved way beyond basic memetic warfare. NAFO technically has won the war against the Russians, at least in Twitter sphere, right? And as you said, most importantly, the most important part of this is not only is it a critical component of information operations, it's fun and it's hilarious. And the Russians are not only losing on the battlefield, they are losing to a group of slightly brain damaged Japanese cartoon dogs. All I can say to that is Slava Ukraini. NAFO Article 5 has been declared, and I'm sure NAFO will be around for a long time. So if you're interested in finding out about exactly what NAFO is, you can go to nafo.org and order this awesome Central Intelligence Agency mug and T-shirts or stickers for your car. Slava Ukraini.
Slava Ukraini.